Okay, we're live. Man, that took a second.
Yeah.
But we got to let the stream breathe just for a couple of seconds. You guys know the drill. Welcome in to the Huddle Up podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle, powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, as always, my partner in crime. You know him, you love him. He's my fellow football priest. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, I want to show our audience, because I'm sure there's a good chunk of them who have not seen this. But did you get a chance? Of course, Jerry Jeudy announced, has agreed to terms with the Broncos. He's locked in, can start training camp, went in today to get the swab and get the first test out of the way and whatnot. But he announced his signing in probably one of the most unique ways I've ever seen a rookie do so. And it was by way of I would argue for a lot of fans, a goosebump-inducing hype video.
It moved, Chad. That's all I can say. It moved. I'll keep it very PG. I'll leave it at that. But it was a very excitable video.
I'm going to show you guys this video. Okay. Bear with me one second, because if you haven't seen it, like, especially if you don't use Twitter a lot, or if you're mostly a Facebook viewer or even a YouTube viewer, you might not have seen this. So let me pull this thing up, because hopefully you guys read the article at milehighhuddle.com and watched the video there. But just for the sake of posterity, to ensure you miss nothing on this show, it is the most comprehensive Broncos podcast on the planet Earth. We want to grab this for you. Bear with me one second. Let me pull it up. This is Jerry Jeudy doing it the right way. It's just phenomenal. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go Broncos! There you go.
We've agreed to terms. Yes, sir.
All right.
That's so cool. Look at that. I don't know if you can see that. Actual goosebumps on my arm right now.
It's just, yeah, I mean, people like, oh, clickbait headline. It's not clickbait. Like, that's legit. I've felt myself getting excited watching it, and I'm pretty desensitized as someone that covers Broncos and cranks out multiple articles a day and videos and podcasts. What I love about that, Zack, is not only is he doing it the right way, but there's almost some cojones there, because he's putting himself on a level. Now, of course, he's a first-round pick, but he's putting himself on a level with the all-time great Broncos.
I love how he incorporated the Broncos history in that. Terrell Davis's salute, John Elway's best moments. He's already embracing the Broncos culture, and not to derail the conversation, but you look at in comparison to someone like Melvin Gordon, who's still watching Chargers highlights and still very much invested in the Chargers organization. Jerry Jeudy, though, what more could you ask for already based on him having no practice time this offseason? He hasn't even been in the facility, Chad, for anything noteworthy, yet he's posted workout videos, route running videos, and every single one has built up more and more hype. I love the originality in this. I love the concept, and I love how he's embracing the Broncos' heritage and also their future.
The legacy is alive, baby, and Jerry Jeudy's going to help keep it alive. And I honestly don't think, a lot of times you see these type of, we'll just say this type of kind of media, and you realize, Broncos PR slapped this together for him and said, here, upload this to your Twitter. In this case, I really don't think that's how it shook out. In this case, I think Jerry Jeudy, maybe his representatives, either way, the Jeudy camp conceived this, and it was just very unique, and we tip our cap to him. But today's podcast, as you guys know, it's the Mile High Mailbag. It's our favorite podcast of the week, because we are your football priests each and every week. We're here to offer you the absolution and the answers to your burning Broncos questions. And it really is our favorite pod, because we get a chance to hear what's on your mind. I mean, not that we don't talk to you guys and take your questions and your super chats during every podcast, but this one is uniquely focused on you guys. Now, depending on how much time we get, we can talk about the 10 questions the Broncos have to answer on the doorstep of training camp that I published today. We can get some Zach's feedback on some of these issues that I pose. But first, we got to get to your questions. And before we do that, Zach, we got to handle some quick matters of business. Guys, make sure you're following the podcast on Twitter @HuddleUpPod. While you're at it, follow the mother account at Mile High Huddle. If you got those two checked on Twitter, you're not going to miss any programming news, any polls, any giveaways as it relates to the podcast, and you won't miss any breaking Broncos news and analysis. And then a gentle reminder for those of you who hopefully got the memo that if you want a chance to attend an NFL game this year, you're going to have to mask up. And if you want to mask up in style, you got to go to huddleuppod.com, get your swag on, get yourself a Mile High Huddle face mask. What's cool about our face masks is that while they might not be the most ideal for like the depths of summer where it's 100 degrees or wherever you might be, it's perfect for football season. Okay. By the time you get to cooler weather games and you start getting into cold weather and elements, you want a face mask that not only covers you and keeps you safe, but it's going to give you a little warming effect as well. And that's what these type of face mask neck gaiters are. So go get yourself one of those, or get a hat, or get a shirt, get a hoodie, a mug. There's tank tops, little something for everybody, male, female. Check that out if you're in a position to do so. And if not, gang, no matter how you're listening to this podcast, whether you're with us live or listening after the fact on demand, each and every one of you can do these three simple things. Number one, wherever you're listening, make sure you're subscribed. Number two, like this video, like this podcast episode. And if you really want to help us out, you really want to help us continue to grow and reach new listeners and like-minded Broncos fans just like you, share it out there on your social media, on your Facebook, on your Twitter, and help us grow and reach a new audience. All right, Zach, let me get that graphic off, and let's start tonight's podcast. Very active already on Super Chat. We'll get to those here in just a second. Goodness gracious. We got to talk Mark Langley, who is bona fide superstar. You guys know him. Most of you know him, and we all love him. Jumping in, $5 super. Thank you, Mark, my friend. And yes, I woke up to a very unique text from Mark today that was showing him making some jokes at his place of employment, in which he was getting a temperature check, right? His safety protocols, and he made me laugh. Anyway, made Zach and I both laugh. Yes, I did show Zach. I did show John. He says, "What's up, my guys? Chad, make sure you tell Zach and Broncos community about the video I sent you. This is taking place at all jobs, temperature, head check." So yeah, I mean, better safe than sorry, I guess. But thank you, Mark. We appreciate you, bro, and hope you're doing well down there in Georgia, my friend. All right, let me see here. Want to welcome in those of you who are hanging out in the room before we went live. Red John, it's good to see you, my friend. We got Eclipse in the house. It was great to talk to Eclipse last night. Awesome.
What's up, guys?
William, what's going on, you guys? Thanks for joining us. Terry's in the house. Talon's in the hizzy. It's a who's who of MHH community. Big E,
Wizards in there, Chad.
Yeah, Miller 707. It's good to see you guys. Zach, unless I missed my mark, before we went live, I didn't, as far as I know, KJ Hamler remains the only Broncos rookie unsigned, unless I missed something breaking literally right as we were setting up the stream. Is that a big deal to you at this stage? It seems a fait accompli at this point.
Yeah, you mean you got your first round wide receiver taken care of. What's a second round wide receiver? So unless he's holding out for an exorbitant contract or trying to get some offset money, there should be no hitch in this process, Chad. He will get signed within the next 24 to 36 hours. I'm not concerned in the slightest.
Yeah, it's nothing to worry about. I was told this morning from someone that I trust that they were expecting it to be done today. Well, we're sitting here at 6:30 on Thursday, and he probably showed up and got his test. My guess is it will be done long before his cleats have to hit the grass on Monday. So, well, technically, we don't know if cleats are going to really hit the grass, Zach, because they're going to be doing those 18 days of conditioning to open up camp once it gets started. But either way, he'll be able to get in the building, fully under contract, locked in, ready to go. And Darian, we concur. Eclipse absolutely crushed it on the podcast last night. Big E here says, "I didn't catch the live show last night, but I did get to watch it after it went off, and you done a great job." I agree. Both of us do agree. It was absolutely a blast.
Yeah.
Oh, we just had a jump. Bear with me one second, gang. I gotta scroll to the very top and grab our friend Mr. Boggins, a bona fide superstar. And by the way, he just produced a new intro for the Mile High Insiders podcast that live streams every Saturday night, and then the RSS feed, the subscribers get to listen to it on demand by that evening, and then Sunday. He just produced a new intro for that podcast, and we're looking forward to debuting that for you guys Saturday night. So thanks for what you do for us, Mr. Boggins. He says, "Do you think that roster depth will be more important as ever with new NFL precautionary guidelines? since potential for quarantine players will most likely be a thing. Also, how are you guys doing? Hashtag Mile High Salute. Right
Pretty
back
good.
at you, my dog. Look, first of all, we're doing great. We're rocking and rolling. We're just excited that camp's about to start. It's finally here. But as far as the roster depth, they are currently negotiating an expanded. Last I checked, anyway. Sometimes this information moves so quickly right now. But last I checked, Zach, the NFL and the NFLPA were negotiating an expanded practice squad. We know it jumped from 10 to 12 with the new CBA, but the last I heard is they were thinking 16. They were talking 16-player practice squad, Zach. I don't know how it's officially going to shake out, but the better depth you have, the better off you're going to be. I've heard some, like in who was it? I think it was Bruce Arians. He's thinking outside the box a little bit. And in terms of worrying about, like, if one player gets it and it's a quarterback, good chance that the players in the room will have been exposed. And if they've been exposed, there's a good chance one or two of them or whoever might also get it. And then all of a sudden you're wiped out. Every quarterback going into a matchup is in quarantine. What do you do? And his answer for that, Zach, is you got one quarterback who is always partitioned away in quarantine from the team, period, all the time. So that if something like that did happen, in this case, it's the backup or the guy you would expect to go in if Tom Brady goes down or something like that, is just never exposed to the team until and unless he has to play. What are your thoughts?
It's a really good idea in theory, but in practicality, Chad, you'd have to find that one quarterback who you feel can carry the team. And then, you have to hope he's not the one who gets it or the starting quarterback on the team. But if the Broncos are left with Brett Ripien as the lone quarterback, how much confidence are we going to have in him, having success with the Broncos in 2020? I don't know how it's going to work out. All I can say is roster depth is always important, regardless of the year, regardless of what's going on. The Broncos are well stocked in certain positions, and they're not in other positions. It scares me still, CV or no CV, the offensive line depth, the cornerback depth, the safety depth. I prefer to have some veterans in there, but we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to get it, who's not going to get it. It's all going to be like an injury, like any other injury. If someone tears an Achilles, you can't predict that. You can't project that. It just happens, and you have to roll with the punches. So expanded rosters, expanded practice squads, having unlimited amount of call-ups in the regular season, not limited to 2 or 3. I think that can be a possibility. But Bruce Arians, it's definitely outside the box. It's just not very – everything would have to go a certain way, break a certain way. And how often does that happen, Chad? Never.
I'll tell you what, though, like, it's a concern. We're worried about it happening. But seeing – I don't know if you guys caught this. And if you've missed it, go to milehighhuddle.com. In the community section, I posted this video from the Broncos. I would play it for you now, but it's a little bit long, and B, because the Broncos have already published it on YouTube, I don't want to worry about any copyright issues while we're streaming live. So go check it out, milehighhuddle.com. Click in the community. You'll see it. This video, Zach, follows Bradley Chubb as he checks in this morning, and it is just unbelievable, the protocols and precautions that are in place. Like Brittany Bolin, it smacks of extreme competency. Like this woman who was in charge of basically restructuring the whole building in order to accommodate for testing and for safety protocols and the whole 9 yards, it is extremely impressive. And it gives me faith and some peace of mind, Zach, that I'm not as worried about there suddenly being a rash of infection. However, the caveat is this, because I think the team will be able to catch it, isolate it really quick if and when it does happen. The caveat, however, Zach, is these young players. Look, we all know what it was like as a 22, 23, 24-year-old single man. Those of us who've been in that position before, you want to go out at night. You want to hit the club. You want to go out and meet people. You want to meet girls, whole 9 yards. These pros, for the sake of that fat paycheck and for the sake of the stakes that are, for the NFL, for the team, they got to stay home this year. They can't go out and expose themselves to social situations in which they're likely to be exposed to the bug. So as long as these players are responsible, hold each other accountable, the team is going to be hammering home that message on a daily basis about don't go out, stay home. It's just going to be a boring year for these guys. But if they really commit and jump in with both feet, Zach, they have a chance to have a very productive season because they can cut out all distractions, focus only on football. And I think where there was a stretch there where we weren't sure if there was going to be a football season, the players included. I think maybe some of them will be a lot more willing to jump in with both feet and limit going out to clubs and be a lot more socially responsible, to use that phrase, because they're going to appreciate what they have a little bit more this year.
First of all, you can see why Brittany Boland is kind of the heir apparent to take over the Broncos, and she's the in the running to become the owner for Pat Boland, to succeed him. Second of all, the Broncos were one of the first teams in the NFL because the NFL left it up to the jurisdiction of each and every individual team to have a protocol plan in place to battle CV or to quarantine, and the Broncos were approved among the first entrance into that program. So the Broncos are always ahead of the game, and it's encouraging. They have good leadership. They have good structure in place. They have a no BS head coach in Vic Fangio who's going to keep the ship together. It's just a little naive to think that 60 players, for example, 70 players, there's not going to be one of those who breaks the social code and goes out and goes clubbing or goes out and goes to a bar. And then all it takes is one, Chad. I'm not pushing fear. I'm not pushing paranoia. All it takes is one guy to come back into that locker room. And, he's tested this and that, can spread from there. So it's like everything else. If you have strong leadership in coaching staff and the players in the locker room, you're going to be better off. And if you don't, if you have an immature locker room or a player's coach, you're going to be, risking unwanted circumstances.
Miller 707, superstar in our community, jumping in. Really appreciate you, my friend. He just says here, just wanted to show some love. Thank you, Chad and Zach, for your time and effort. Hashtag simply the best. You're very sweet, Miller 707. You are an OG in this community, and we appreciate you, my friend. But Zach, to that point, I really suggest if you guys haven't checked out this video, it's actually quite reassuring. And it'll boost your confidence that this season can go off without a hitch, relatively speaking, if the players stay disciplined. And the one thing is they're testing daily. So if I'm Bradley Chubb and I show up today to report, they do the nasal swab, they test me, they do the whole 9 yards. Then I go home today, tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, and I self-isolate. Okay, I can't go out. I have to stay home. Then I come back Sunday for the second test. Then I go back home and self-isolate. If that test comes back negative, I'm good to go to show up Monday morning. But guess what? I'm still going to get tested every single day I walk through that building. That's encouraging. Here's where it gets a little bit concerning. It takes about 24 hours, and you learn this in the video, for the test to come back. So if you are exposed and you do carry it and you don't feel sick, you have no symptoms, no temperature, because they temperature check them. They do all kinds of cool sterilization of their phone and stuff, like with UV lighters. It's very high tech, very comprehensive what Brittany Boland did here. But nevertheless, it takes 24 hours, Zach, for that test to come back. So in theory, if you have been exposed, you've got a whole day that you could be exposing your position group, which is why they also went to great length to create social distancing within the building. So in the meeting rooms, they're separated by social distance guidelines, so the 6 feet. In the locker room, they're separated. The showers are separated now. So they really have tried to think around each and every curve. There's no accounting for, just random twists of fate. But I really do think that the Broncos especially did a good job of basically mitigating the risk as far down as you can possibly go without just shutting the whole thing down.
The Broncos have done an excellent job, and they've done everything in their power, Chad, humanly possible, to curtail the CV issue and to keep the players healthy and the coaching staff healthy and the equipment people healthy, everyone in the building healthy. But it is the invisible enemy, as we all know, and all it takes is one little infection, and then the entire thing is spoiled. I agree with you. I think the season will go off without a hitch, but will it end without a hitch? Is there going to be an interruption? Is there going to be a pause in play? Is there going to be a team that comes down with a huge surging case and it just becomes a pandemic within the NFL? That's what I'm worried about. And I don't have any doubt in my mind. We're going to see football in week 1. After that, though, depending on how the rest of the teams in the NFL curtail the issue and the protocols they put in place, I'll wait and see.
Man, hopefully the Broncos, which, they got their plan approved by the NFL, and the NFL was impressed with what the Broncos did. I know the state of Colorado, the health department was impressed with what the Broncos did, the measures and protocols they put in place. But if there's any team out there in doubt on which way to do this thing, look at what Brittany Boland did. You guys go check out that video, and I'm telling you, you will take encouragement. Again, there's no perfect way to eliminate risk. We take risk the second we walk out the door every single day. Jump in a car, go for a jog around the block. We take our lives into our own hands in that sense. So there's no perfectly, there's no the perfect safety measure. But as far as mitigating it down, it's very comprehensive. Eclipse jumping in, showing extreme generosity, big time member of the community. It was so fun
you.
to talk to you last night, my friend.
The Philly OG.
Really, definitely indeed. We really appreciate you. Hopefully you immediately got off the podcast last night and went and watched Silver Linings Playbook. I'm just kidding. But check it out. Don't forget. Happy Thursday, Priest and Broncos country. I loved being on the other side with you guys. It was awesome. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks to the Broncos family for all the love and encouragement. Hashtag state of being. And he created a new hashtag. We're going to have to find a way to do this, the MHH UN, because he called us the UN of Broncos country, which I thought was very sweet. I loved it. We're going to have to figure out a way to, create a real hashtag around that. But thank you, Eclipse.
Very cool. Appreciate you.
Mundungus continues his streak of just
the wizard.
Absolute, just blowing our minds,
Wow.
Generosity and support for the channel and the podcast. We love you, bro. We appreciate you more than we can say. He says, you guys should have Judy make you a hype intro video for the pod. I want to see both cool. Zach and Chad showing off the footwork. Yeah, see me blowing an Achilles. That's what
you don't want to see that. You definitely don't want to see that. That's why we cover it. We're not on the field.
Yeah, I mean, maybe back in the day, dude, but I've seen too many summers. You know what I'm saying? I'm on the wrong side of 40. But yeah, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. And I like using this as an opportunity to remind our listeners in the community that if you do have a brick and mortar shop or business entity that needs a little plug, a little help from the pod, from MHH, let us know. We're happy to help you out because it's been some dark times this last 3.5, 4 months in these United States. We got Zeus McPeak just showing also amazing generosity. We love you, bro. And hey, I don't know about you, but I haven't been able to connect with Stu this week, and I really need to. I'm going to be doing literally nothing tomorrow other than throwing up a few articles and some videos. If you got time, let me know. I need to hook up with you, dude, because I was just talking to my wife about this last night. We need to make some changes to our internet. And this time I want to do it for the last time. I want to make sure it's 100% the best thing. And I know you've got the answer. He says, you guys rock. I mean, this whole pod family, talking to everybody. Thank you all. Zach, he's been consistent since we started doing these live streams. Like if he's in the stream, he's showing love. He's on Super Chat, and it just means the world to us.
I want to thank Stu for a second. Stu, thank you so much. You're up there, right in the heavens. That's why you're Zeus McPeak. I see through the clouds. Thank you so much, Stu. It's unspeakable how amazing you are and how consistent you are.
You are the man, my friend. We've got from Glenn. Yeah, he has not signed. KJ Hamler has not signed quite yet, but it's nothing to worry about. It really isn't. I don't know. Again, these contracts, Zach, they're slotted. There are only a few points that you could really even have any legal right to negotiate around. And so, I should say legal prerogative to negotiate around. I don't know what might be holding this up. It could simply be a process situation where the Broncos have done a flurry of contracts over the last 3 business days where they just, they got to wait for paperwork to process or something. But he's going to be signed well before Monday. Book that.
Something that stood out to me too is sometimes the holdup is the players that are in back of them or in front of them haven't signed yet. So I don't know the player that was selected behind Hamler, in front of Hamler, if they've signed, but even guys like Joe Burrow, the number 1 overall pick, he doesn't have a contract yet. It's a formality, but it is still a negotiation between player and team. It's no worry though. It will get done.
This really,
wow.
This is very moving to me.
Very Zeus like.
I've gotten to know Zach a little bit. I'm not going to say that I know him, perfectly well, but over the last couple of months, just being connected on social media and stuff, I've gotten to know him, and he's a very inspirational human being. And you guys will get a chance to see what I mean when we eventually have him on the show. At some point in August, he'll be on the show. Maybe we need to release a schedule or something so people know and get all those ducks in a row. But Zach, just want you to know that you are a very big part of this community. We love having you as a part of the MHH family, and you don't have to do this. We want you to know we're not going to ask you to show this generosity to the pod. We love it. It means everything to us, but I just want you to know we don't want you to feel like you've got to do that. It means, I'm not trying to minimize what you're doing because it means everything to us, but I just know what you're striving for with your little business that you got cooking with the web design and whatnot. And We just want the best for you. If you guys need something designed on the web, this is your guy right here, Zach's Web Design. He says, I just wanted to share the love for the best pod out there. I'm just pumped up for this season because you guys are giving us the best information out there. Thank you for creating the best football family out there. Hashtag 11-5 season. Hashtag we the best. Love
Coward
it, dude.
voice. Thank you so much, Zach. It's again unspeakably amazing, and you've been so supportive and so encouraging, and we'll always help your business out. And I echo what Chad said. Your story is inspiring, is motivating, and we appreciate each and every opportunity we have to interact with you. So thank you so much.
I don't know what it is about this week, Zach, because the outpouring has just been moving. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just unbelievable. And
Wow.
Mundungus, he already showed serious generosity. I mean, an inordinately generous super chat in this podcast already just a few minutes ago. And here he is again. Just, it blows our mind, my friend. We really appreciate you. And, looking forward to this season. It's going to be a gas talking about this stuff with you and the entire community. He says, well, since everyone else is throwing out the hundos, what was your favorite Broncos Super Bowl winning team? The 97, 98, or 15? Look, I'm biased because I grew up with John Elway posters on my wall. Okay, so 97, it felt like the Broncos were one of those, that they were the Buffalo Bills, just destined to be close but no cigar. And I tell this story to remind people, John Elway's own mother, when he made it to Super Bowl 32 that year against the Packers, the 97 season, Super Bowl took place in 98, but the 97 season, his own mother was just so anxious because she almost didn't want it to happen because she couldn't take the disappointment and the ridicule and the embarrassment of another loss. Because at that point, Elway was known as the guy that could just not win the big one. He was 0-for-3 in the Super Bowl. As a franchise, the Broncos were 0-4 in the Super Bowl. So, and I understand that mentality. Like, I can put myself in her shoes and understand as a parent, like, I don't want my child to hurt again. I don't want them to be humiliated in their own mind again. But he triumphed. And that moment, Zach, was just, I know every Broncos fan who was alive at the time and old enough to remember, it was such a sweet, sweet, sweet victory. And what made it all the sweeter, Zach, for Broncos fans, you were going against the defending world champion Green Bay Packers, who at the time, you had Brett Favre. It was either year 2 or year 3 of winning the MVP in a row. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was the juggernaut Packers. Like, nobody. You think nobody expected the 2015 Broncos to beat Cam Newton? That was Peyton Manning. There were people that were like, no, keep an eye on the Broncos. Nobody was picking the Broncos to win in 97. When it happened, it was like the sky came tumbling down in the best sense, like in a positive way. So for me, that's always going to be that team, unique. Mike Shanahan, the classic coach. Of course, Kubiak was the OC, and you name it. Almost all but one. Is it all but one? Yeah, all but one. No, all but 2 of the Broncos' current Hall of Fame representation were on that team or a part of that world championship. So I got to say 97, Zach.
Yeah, the 97, 98 teams, I think, were more iconic, Chad. They go down in NFL lore for the plays and the comebacks and the triumphant victory, as you mentioned. But for me, 2015, there's something about the underdog story. How this team came out of nowhere that year. They had a sagging Peyton Manning. They had Brock Osweiler come in. And that defense was one for the record books. They were smothering. Even before I covered the Broncos, I was in awe of watching that team play. They meet the Panthers. They get through every major AFC foe. They beat the Patriots, get to the Panthers, a 15-1 team, MVP quarterback. Nobody gave the Broncos a shot in hell to win that game. And they did not just win that game, Chad. They dominated Carolina from the opening whistle. Von Miller's performance against Cam Newton in that Super Bowl is one of the most iconic defensive performances I have seen in any game. And it sort of solidified his legend, not only in Denver, but for the sport of football. So for me, the 2015 team, I love underdog stories. I love teams that are counted out. That's why I let him hate. It's a hashtag now. So 15, great team, great memories. Love it.
As much as I loved hearing Pat Bowlen stand up there and say, this one's for John, very kind of like rote, like he had practiced it and knew exactly. That was cool. And it was a very euphoric moment, celebrating, just soaking it all in. But John Elway, think of the triumph this man felt, right? Pat had stepped down a year and a half prior because of the ravages of Alzheimer's. And Pat had provided almost I mean, were it not for Pat Bowlen bankrolling John Elway's whole career in life, who knows? I mean, and he was a father figure to him, and he gave him the job as the front office guy. The level of human triumph for John Elway as a front office czar to slap a team together and bring home the world championship, and then to stand up there and say, this one's for Pat. To me, it's the most, like, I put it up there higher, even though 97 is, that team is, to me, is more meaningful. That moment where he said, this one's for Pat, and just put the trophy in the air, raised it up there. That's the most iconic moment in my book in the history of the Denver Broncos. There are some great plays, the helicopter, Outwater truck in the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye, Terrell Davis, and there are some iconic moments, Peyton Manning's 2013 season, and iconic periods. But Zach, that moment, it was just something I will never, ever forget.
It was vindication for Elway. It's one thing to win a title, Chad, but again, to beat a team like the Carolina Panthers and beat them handily. The exasperation, what he let out, that battle cry, this one's for Pat. I agree. It's goosebump inducing, and it will always be remembered in the memories of Broncos fans. And that's why, for me, Chad, that whole game from start to finish, that whole team, 15, is just my favorite.
And the emotion in Elway's voice,
right,
and on his face, like you could tell. This was, if the cameras aren't on him and the spotlight's not on him, and he's, the scrutiny of the entire world is not laser focused on Elway in that moment, I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks down in tears, or even later that night goes home and just like weeps because of how happy he is to be able to give that to Pat. And that comes through, man, in those, what is it, 4 words? This one's for Pat. Yeah, 4 words. So anyway, Glenn, very funny joke, my dog. All right. Duke jumping in with a question. Appreciate you, my friend, as always. You know that. He says, my question is, are the players going to be required to wear masks?
No.
I don't think a face mask on a helmet counts. LOL. So not on the field, they're not going to be required to wear masks. But I believe it's my understanding that in team meetings and whatnot, they're going to be masked up, because in that video with Chubb, where they follow him around through his whole check-in and his nasal swab, and you get to see all the upgrades they've made. Everyone he comes into contact with from the team employee perspective and personnel guys, they're all masked. So my guess is, and by the way, you saw them getting out of their cars today, the players that did show up to report, they all, as they're getting out, they put on their mask to go in. So they've been told they need to mask up before they come in. So my guess is when they're in meetings, they're going to be required to wear masks. But how effective that's going to be, I don't know, because then you get out on the grass and you sweat all over each other, and contact sport after all. I don't know how much wearing masks inside the building, as far as the players are concerned, is really going to make a difference.
I don't know if what I saw was the factual, but I think that they're going to have face shield coverings in the NFL, and it's encouraged but not required. It's not mandatory. So some players it's not necessarily a mask. It's more like a full face shield. So there's no openings in their helmet at all. That's what they're going to be encouraged to wear on the field. If I read that correctly, it was a tweet I saw earlier from an NFL high-ranking employee. So it's going to be encouraged, not required. Hard to play a game. World-class athletes, they can't breathe properly, especially in Denver. So we'll have to see how that plays out. There's so many uncertainties, Chad, still in what's going to go on the field this season.
No doubt. Terry up north of the 49th parallel in Canada, proving, as always, the Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is a state of being, baby. Right. And we are the UN of Broncos country. Got to give credit to Eclipse for coming up with that. He says, any thoughts on the salary cap debate going on? Do it now or spread it out? So if you missed it, what Terry's talking about is the players, because there is going to be a revenue shortage this year. They're expected to be projected around $4 billion loss. I shouldn't say loss. That's not accurate. $4 billion revenue shortfall this year. So instead of bringing in $16 billion this year because of ticket sales and other things, fans in the stands being significantly curtailed, if not eliminated for some teams, they expect it to be $4 billion less that the NFL is going to bring in revenue-wise. So naturally, the salary cap is going to be affected in 2021. In years past, Zach, basically for the last, as long as I can remember, the salary cap has grown each year because it's informed and based on the previous year's revenue by about a 10% clip. This year, it's definitely not going to be able to grow. There's not going to be the revenue to allow it to grow in terms of salary cap. if anything, NFL owners, excuse me, they're going to have to come. They know it's going to come down. What the players are saying right now is they're like, look, whatever the hit is this year, by the time we get to 2021 football, odds are there's going to be a vaccine and we're going to be back to business as usual and we don't have to worry about these things. So instead of it all hitting whatever the ramification financially is from this year's shortfall, instead of it all hitting next year's cap, spread it out over the ensuing 10 years. So it's smaller. It's not as going to affect player contracts and the money that gets handed out in free agency as much. So my thoughts on that, Zach, is I don't know why the owners are dragging their feet on that. To me, it's a very common sense solution if you want to kind of keep the momentum for the players and the league has established in recent history.
More negotiating and more proof that this is all nothing more than money. That's what it comes down to. This is all discussions over money for players, for coaches, for teams, for everything. The way I understand it is the NFL owners and teams want the salary cap to be reduced in 2020 and 2021, whereas the union and the players want that to be, like Chad mentioned, stretched out over the course of many years. If they go with the former option, it's going to lead to a lot of releases of veteran players. It's going to lead to biblical types of transactions, cuts, releases, trades, what have you. I don't know how it's going to work out. They have to meet in the middle somewhere. There's going to be a loss. It's not going to be a flat cap in 2021. It's going to be down. It's just a matter of how much lower can it go, and will that be the only year it's going to happen, or will it happen in 2022, 23, 24? If it's limited these 2 seasons, got to give more credit again to Patrick Mahomes. His deal isn't going to affect until 2022, and it's tied to the NFL salary caps rising. Just a little apropos said nothing.
But, you know, the NFL teams have a dog in this fight, too, in terms of a vested interest because, I mean, $16 billion minus $4 billion, that's a 25%, unless my math is wrong, drop. So if the salary cap goes down by 25% from just over 200, it's like 210 or something, right? I mean, you're talking about a $50 million shortfall on the salary cap. Suddenly teams only have $150 million to spend on the cap next year. Some, as Zach said, some extremely, and they're committed to contracts that are well over $150 million. Right. Cuts if they're going to, you know, maintain that requirement and competitive discipline to you're not allowed to be over the cap. So NFL teams, for their own sake, I think Zach should be more than open and willing to doing that. Appreciate you, my friend. And then James here says, Terry, talking about his question here, I'd rather they spread the cut over 5 seasons, not 10, not for 2020. Rosters are basically finalized, and it would have some shocking veteran cuts if they were to incorporate it now. Agreed 100%. I mean, agreed on I'm okay with it going over 10 years because I do think by the time you get to 2021, Zach, this whole thing is going to be in the rear view. Not only are therapeutics and hospitals and doctors able to treat the word that shall go unnamed far more efficiently and effectively today than they were in March, imagine how much more advanced even that's going to be by the time you get to next fall. And that's in the worst case scenario if there is no vaccine. I do think all the signs point to something being available actually in the calendar year of 2020, which once that's available, I mean, the federal government just gave billions of dollars to in a contract to, I can't remember which pharmaceutical company.
Pfizer.
Thank you. But to secure many hundreds of millions of vaccines if when that vaccine actually comes through and it passes through the trials and it's approved for use. So I think I'd rather, if you can avoid it being apocalyptic in 2021 in terms of the cap and whatnot, why wouldn't you try and avoid that, you know?
And those vaccines would be free for all Americans, just a little aside. And second of all, the NFL, maybe the NFL, the union can come to terms and maybe allow teams to go over the salary cap for 2021 only, have some little wiggle room in place and make some allowances for the salary cap. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but it all comes down to money. This is not to keep the players safe. It's not to keep the fans safe. It's to preserve as much money for the owners, the coaches, and the players. It all comes down to business.
Amen to that. All right, let's see what else we got here. Bear with me one sec. We got Ron Dubb checking in. Good to see you, my friend. Bonafide superstar in the community. He says, hey, guys, nice hype video. Talking about Judy's hype video. What stat line and qualities would it take for Judy to be the offensive rookie of the year? And how about his first Pro Bowl nod?
It's going to be tough.
Zach, let's just take the feasibility aspect or how likely it is. what would it take? I think in order for Judy to be in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year, he's going to have to be 1,000-yard receiver
At least,
and a touchdown highlight machine, very on the front of people's minds in terms of on Sports Center every Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. I mean, constantly in the face of people. And the same goes for the Pro Bowl nod. When you're a first-round pick, unless your name is Bradley Chubb, that usually makes a big difference in terms of, perception amongst your peers in terms of if you're doing well and you're producing, comes time for the Pro Bowl voting, you're on the front of their minds. They're going to, first rounder. Yep. And the production lines up. I'm going to go ahead and vote for Jerry Jeudy. Chubb didn't get the benefit of that for whatever reason in 2018. I'm still trying to understand it because he had 12 sacks and, I wouldn't say he was dominant, but he had a historically, from a production perspective, rookie campaign and even set a franchise record for rookie sacks. But I think you got to get over 1,000. And for what it's worth, the over-under on Jeudy, it's 840 something in terms of yards right now. And I think the touchdown over-under, I could Google that, but what's your answer for Ron?
He's got to play on a winning team too. If he's a 1,200-yard guy and the Broncos are a 7-win team, no one's going to care about him. I mean, it's going to be tough to win it regardless because Joe Burrow is the presumptive favorite. He's the quarterback, just like Kyler Murray won it last year. But if he's a 1,200, 1,300-yard guy, and even if he eclipses Cortland Sutton and the Broncos are a playoff team, if they're a 10, 11-win team, they will put him right in the running for that title. I just don't know in reality how feasible that is because you have Sutton, you have Hamler, you have many mouths to feed, you have a still raw quarterback, and we don't know how the Broncos are going to be, 100% of the way. We can guess and we can make proclamations, but we don't know for sure. If they're a winning team and they're surging and Jerry Jeudy is just balling like Chad said, he will be in the running. But it's going to take an enormous effort for him not to, for him to get it over Joe Burrow or some of the other players in this draft class.
Yeah, quarterbacks are naturally favored, in when it comes to Offensive Rookie of the Year considerations. But according to SI Gambling, the over/under on Jerry Jeudy touchdowns as a rookie is 5.5, and I'm going to take the over on that, just barely. I think he's going to get somewhere between 6 to 8 touchdowns, but it probably would take more than that, plus the 1,000 yards to put him in the running for the Pro Bowl or Offensive Rookie of the Year. But as Zach said, when it comes down to individual accolades, it really does start with team success. When the team success is there, individuals are going to reap the benefits and the accolades are going to come. So focus, if we hope and focus on that first, which we all do, everyone wants the Broncos to succeed this year. I think the good things will come because if the Broncos do succeed this year, Zach, odds are Jerry Jeudy's probably going to have a big role, at least in whatever the offensive success is.
But is it going to be bigger than Cortland Sutton? And that's where, Sutton's an established, bona fide wide receiver 1. Jerry Jeudy right now is a high-end wide receiver 2. He has a long ways to go. Pro Bowl, Chad, regardless of the Broncos' record, that could be more feasible than Offensive Rookie of the Year. It would take a lot of stars aligning for that to happen. I'm a big Jerry Jeudy fan.
We've got Chris Hernandez jumping in, bona fide superstar, just every time he's in the stream, showing love, extremely generous.
Thank you, Chris.
We love you, bro. He says, missed the show yesterday because I was driving to LA, and now I'm driving back from there. Awesome show last night, and look forward to hearing this one later. Much love to the MHH fam. Hashtag click those little thumbs up. Dude, this is another example, Zach, of a listener and a community member that can't necessarily be in the whole conversation live. They're going to listen after the fact. But he still goes out of his way to come in and support the show on a super chat that goes to the channel and feeds MHH on the YouTube side of things and just blows us away.
Consistent, supportive, encouraging, Chris, dedicated. You're everything in one. And it's every superstar. It's every person in this podcast. But Chris, thank you so much for your generosity.
Okay, we're sitting here at 43 minutes. I'm going to grab one more super. And I know this is the mailbag. So any questions, any topics you want us to get to, put them in the chat. John will be keeping an eye out for those. But I want to get your thoughts on some of these questions, training camp questions. Kevin G. Zach, this is a name I don't recognize as a consistent super chatter. So thank you, Kevin, for becoming a superstar.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, bro. He says, what's up, guys? Who do you think will win or is best suited for the kick returner, punt returner duties? Seems like I haven't seen a return touchdown in years. You haven't, dude. You haven't seen a return touchdown since, that's a good trivia. Was it Trendon? I want to say it was. I want to say Trendon Holiday is the last Bronco to return a kick or a punt for 6 in a regular season game.
You mean Isaiah McKenzie never did it, Chad?
Right. 6 fumbles as a returner, 6 muffed fumbles, muffed punts. Someone fact check me on that. If you know the answer, fact check me on that. Was Trenton Holiday the last Bronco to return a kick or a punt for 6 in a game that counted? Which speaks to Kevin's point, though. Hasn't seen a return TD in years. To the point, though, I think, look, KJ Hamler makes a lot of sense for that job. And if you really want to swing for the fences, if you're the Broncos, that's who you put back there because he is a human joystick in the truest sense. Only he's a much more like Isaiah McKenzie. Don't get me wrong. He was very talented and he was called the human joystick for what it's worth. But he wasn't as smooth of an athlete or as consistent and prolific as KJ Hamler was coming into the league. I'd love to see KJ Hamler back there. But if I had to make a bet right now, I'm not a betting man, but if I did put a wager on it, Zach.
Don't say it. Spencer?
I mean, I want to avoid carrying 6 wide receivers only for the sake of he's our returner. I want that spot to go to someone who's going to contribute more on defense or offense. So, but I still think it's going to end up being Deontay Spencer.
If we have to think about it, though, and we don't know the answer at the top of our heads, that's a point in itself. It's been too long since the Broncos had a special teams touchdown. Spencer came close to breaking a few last year on punt returns. He was pretty electric, but I don't spend a second-round pick on a Tyreek Hill level fast wide receiver and then not have him play multiple spots. Put Philip Lindsay kick returner. You can make multiple options back there and not have to rely on rostering one player for one specific purpose. I'm not carrying Spencer for one role. That he's not exactly Dante Hall. He's not exactly Devin Hester. He's a good guy, but it's relative to what we've seen from Isaiah McKenzie and the Carlos Hendersons, the Devontae Bookers. It's all relative. He looked good last year because the Broncos had such crap before him. So I'm not carrying Spencer. It's not my call, obviously, but I'm making Hamler earn that role. He was a second-round pick. He's not going to be asked to be a starting receiver on the outside initially. Make him earn his money. Pull double duty and contribute on special teams. Learn how to field punts. But as long as Tom McMahon is calling the shots there, all bets are off.
By the way, real quick, Dennis, appreciate you, my friend. He's jumping in on Super Chat to say, I can still hear Dave Logan's call. Oh, baby, we're going to win this thing. Hashtag state of being, hashtag Denver Broncos for life. I know, dude. It's like, it really was just unreal. It was hard to believe because so many times Broncos country had gotten to the pinnacle but couldn't quite get over the hump, and it finally happened. All right, Zach, I want to get your thoughts. Any questions, guys, any topics, get them in the chat stream. We're not done with the chat. It is the Mile High Mailbag. But I want to get your thoughts on some of these questions. These, to me, are the 10 questions needing answered by the Broncos that are nagging at me, okay? And each one has, in terms of its importance to the team, you can rank them. But here's what, to me, are the 10 questions this team has to answer. And Zach, unfortunately, unlike a traditional year, we start getting some of the answers by the time you get to the preseason. You start seeing how things are shaking out and coming out in the wash on the grass. We're not going to be able to get those answers in their fullness until the regular season rolls around, which kicks off for the Broncos September 14th against the Tennessee Titans. So, number one for me, though, on the doorstep of Broncos camp, number one question is, will this offense have time to gel? With the entire offseason training program nixed, you think, well, that's the case for all 32 teams. They're all on equal footing in that sense. And you're not completely wrong, but you're not completely right if that's your perspective, because the teams that either have a new offensive or defensive coordinator and or a young or new quarterback, it's going to affect them, Zach, more inordinately, right? They're going to be slightly more affected by the fact that there was no OTA, no mini camps, no anything, than the teams that, have continuity at offensive coordinator and quarterback especially. In the Broncos case, you got Pat Shurmur coming in. With him is coming Mike Shula to coach the quarterbacks, to coach Drew Lock. And you got Drew Lock entering year 2. Now, I happen to think that he's going to shine in Shurmur's scheme. What I worry about is that they're going to have enough time to fully assimilate this thing and get on the same page to where they would normally in a normal year, so that by the time week 1 rolls around, they are firing on all cylinders. But what's your outlook on this question?
I'm with you on that. I mean, I'm not panicking. I've been preaching kind of calmness about the chemistry and continuity aspect. They're in good hands with their coaching staff, Chad. But you look at what's really the case and what the truth is. They have a first-year full-time starting quarterback, and they have new personnel at literally every spot on offense. Offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, running back. You would like to have a normal offseason to get these guys in the same building, on the same field, in front of their coaching staff, and get the playbook down. A lot of moving parts, a lot of young players, a lot of different kinds of talent and skill sets. I'm with you on that. They need to have some time to gel. It is a pressing question and a burning question to me. I'm right there with you.
All right, number 2. And by the way, thank you, William. Appreciate the love. We want to always shout out our Facebook audience, which is vast. I mean, we're up to 87 something followers on Facebook. So we love each and every one of you. But Zach, here's number 2. Can Shurmur and Shula, this kind of ties into one, hit it off with Locke. Now, it's one thing to learn a system that you are being handed by a coach, all right? Whether you jive with that coach or not, your job is to learn the system, know the play calls, master your responsibilities therein. But in the case of a quarterback, you really have to be able to gel with your coaches. And I don't mean just be a good fit for their scheme, but personality-wise, teaching, the student-teacher dynamic and the way that works. So this is going to be the first time, this coming week will be the first time Shurmur and Shula will get hands-on Drew Lock. They've been in contact with him. They've been talking to him on the phone. They've been doing Zoom meetings, texting back and forth, emails. Shurmur talked about how impressed he's been with Drew Lock's football acumen, his dedication to the game. He eats, sleeps, breathes football, and that's been very encouraging for him to see. But I wonder if they're going to have enough time to really gel the way they need to, as I talked about in point 1. But number 2, really get on the same page and fit with his 2 most important coaches at this point, his OC and his quarterback's coach.
I'm not too worried about this one, honestly. If this was Rich Scangarello as the coach or Paxton Lynch as the quarterback, it would give me cause for concern. But you have Drew Lock, who handled system after system after system at Missouri. You have Pat Shurmur, who is a great offensive mind. He's a quarterback whisperer going down the line in his career, Chad, from Donovan McNabb to Eli Manning and everyone in between. He's been great with quarterbacks, and Shula has the bloodlines. So if there's going to be some a weird offseason or a hitch in the offseason or a limited practice time, at least you have a quarterback who's not resistant to change. You have a quarterback who's used to change, and you have a coaching staff who gets the most out of their quarterbacks. I'm not too worried about this one playing out.
All right, let me grab number 3 here. And that is, how does the cornerback pecking order take shape? I think it's fair to say that if Bryce Callahan indeed stays healthy and on the field, he and A.J. Bouye are the 2 guaranteed starters. And when I say starters, in today's game, you got 3 corners on the field 80% of the time. So 2 of those 3 corners are resolved, and if one of them can stay healthy, Bouye, Callahan. But what happens behind them? It's a who's who of young up-and-comers, completely unproven NFL corners. And honestly, the most proven guy is probably Devontae Bosby, and he's got 2 real NFL games under his belt, 2.5. So how is this pecking order going to take shape? Who's going to really lock down that number 2 boundary corner spot, I should say. I don't want to confuse it with the slot. Callahan's going to be the slot. Who's going to lock down that number 2? Because I think you're going to see when it's base, Callahan's going to play that boundary spot like Chris Harris used to. And then when it's, sub package or they run 3 wide, they'll kick him inside. Who's going to come in then at that point and be that other boundary corner opposite of Bouye? Zach, if I had to put a wager on it at this point, I got my money on Devontae Bosby.
Yep.
But it wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being the rookie, Michael Ojemudia.
I'd be a little wary if that was Ojemudia, Chad. The Broncos' pass defense would be in kind of tenuous hands if he won out that second cornerback spot. I'm with you. I love Bosby, what I saw last year, but he's coming off a neck injury. A.J. Bouye isn't the same player as he was a couple years ago. Bryce Callahan, as we all know, is coming off an injury. If you're going to rely on the Aseng Bassis of the world, that's not a good position to be in. This is why we've been screaming for the Broncos for months now to sign a veteran cornerback. Prince Amukamara was there for the taking on a silver platter, and the Broncos turned their nose about him. I don't understand that. I am completely in agreement with you. It still scares me, the depth back there. 1 injury away from having Isaac Yiadom start at outside cornerback. It is terrifying to me, Chad.
Yeah. our friend, a 6'10" Mexican, Adan. Is I pronouncing your name correctly? If I didn't, I'm sorry, bro. But jumping in on Super Chat, appreciate you, my friend.
you.
Check out his podcast, Bronco Talk. He's an up-and-comer trying to make a name for himself. Check him out. He says, this isn't a huge Zach Mundungus or Stu Super Chat, but glad I can help promote the show any way I can. You guys rock. Hashtag glad my team has a name. Hashtag Kelberman CFO. That's a good point. It doesn't have anything to do with the Broncos, but the team known as Washington, they haven't come up with a name yet that they want to use. So they announced today they're just going to be called the Washington Football Team for the foreseeable future. Like there's no imminent new name coming in. That's it for now.
Yeah, it's no comment on that. But Adon, you've been so supportive on Twitter and so encouraging. We appreciate you. And if I ever get my opportunity to be a CFO of the Broncos, I will not let you down. Promise you.
You know he'll crush it. Yeah, he says if my podcast ever takes off big, I'll for sure request your services.
You got it.
He's. I think he's talking in that case.
Oh, gotcha.
I think he's talking about Zach's web design. But Zach is he's a man of many talents. And here's Zach.
You're right. There we go.
He said, 6'10", I'll definitely help you, bro. All right. And also, Zach, I hope you saw that message from Mundungus. If you could use some website services, that's what I'm talking about. It's a community. Let's network. Let's help each other where and when we can. Yeah. All right, Zach, here's the next one. We'll get to your questions. I promise you. Get them in there. Number 4, we'll move through these a little bit more rapidly. Who emerges as the third wide receiver? So to me, Zach, people are going to try and throw Tim Patrick into this equation. He doesn't really factor in. It's Deshaun Hamilton or it's KJ Hamler. Who do you got winning out day one?
I mean, if KJ Hamler, if a second-round pick can't beat out a fourth-round pick, Chad, with his skill set, you have a problem there. I mean, the Broncos drafted him to be the long-term wide receiver 3, the slot guy, the Deshaun Jackson, Tyreek Hill type, and you have 2 beastly outside receivers. I'm not the biggest Deshaun Hamilton fan. Maybe that's the bias of me creeping in here. I haven't seen much from him that would, blow me away. He's has drop issues. He's not the fastest guy, not the strongest guy, not the tallest guy. Decent slot receiver, but not anything more than a jag to me. So it should be Hamler for the long term. But the key word there is should.
Amen. All bets are off when it comes to rookies. It's easy to get our expectations really high because they're highly drafted and they're new and there's the novelty and the excitement. But there's no accounting for rookies, how they're going to actually handle the NFL and make the jump. It's as evidenced by the long laundry list of premium round busts in the NFL that flame out each and every year. And I'm not saying that's what Hamler is, don't get me wrong, but there's just no predicting exactly how that's going to shake out. But I concur with you. I do think because of that, you're going to see Hamilton probably open up the season as the number 3, but it will be a short matter of time before Hamler overtakes him this season. Yeah. All right, number 5, who takes control of the center position? Zach, before the draft, Patrick Morris was kind of penciled in and pegged as the Broncos' future starter. That changed when Lloyd Cushenberry came in as the 3rd-round pick, and he's a very talented and accomplished center, basically a quintessential Mike Munchak center. How do you see this shaking out? Is it just a matter of course that Cushenberry is going to emerge on top, or are we sleeping a little bit?
I mean, nothing's ever a certainty in the NFL. He was a 3rd-round pick, though, comes from a big LSU program. He has all of the traits that Munchak would love. If he's not the starting center, again, there's a problem there. I mean, you can theoretically factor in Dalton Reisner playing center, but he's good at left guard. So if it's Lloyd Cushenberry versus Patrick Morris, you better hope that Cushenberry wins the job. It will be tilted in his favor, but nothing handed to him. He should win out and take hold of that pivot position. And he should be the guy, Chad, the Broncos don't get rid of after they got rid of Matt Paradis and Connor McGovern.
All right, let's grab Mike Evans real quick, jumping in with a question on Super Chat, Bonafide Superstar. Love you, buddy. By the way, I don't know if you saw my reply email. You got your swag that we sent out. We want to see you in that. We want a selfie, dude. We want to be able to shout you out on Instagram, shout you out on Twitter. Hook us up if you want to. If you don't want to, so that's all good. But if you're comfortable with it, shoot it over to us, a selfie in the gear. We'd love to shout you out. He says, do we think Courtland Sutton will see much double coverage? Last year, Zach, basically from the end of, well, I shouldn't say that because Sanders was on the roster to open last season. But let's just say from the time Sanders was dealt up until the end of the season, that was the book on the Broncos. Shut down Courtland Sutton, double cover him, and pretty much smothered the passing offense for the Denver Broncos. What's your answer for Mike Evans now that you've got Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler and, Noah Fant expected to take a step forward in year 2.
God, I mean, it went just beyond double coverage and bracket coverage last year. They were molesting him on the field, Chad. I have a video on my YouTube where he makes a one-handed catch in the end zone against the Chargers, and he's being just yanked and pulled and interfered with, and he still made the catch. He will get double coverage to start out the season until the Broncos prove they have a secondary guy who can burn the defense. Because for now, Jerry Jeudy's unproven, Hamler's unproven, Fant's unproven. But if one of those guys steps up and takes hold and starts making plays, then you cannot double cover Courtland Sutton. But until that time comes, Chad, he's still going to get the same coverage. And guess what? He's still going to beat it. He's an 80-20 guy, not a 50-50 guy.
And it's only a matter of time, dude. I mean, you've seen the routes. Jerry Jeudy, he's going to command attention. So you're going to see a lot more one-on-ones. It might take I honestly don't think it'll take more than a half of week 1 for defensive coordinators to go, we can't cheat and double cover Sutton on every passing snap. But it's going to be fun to see how it shakes out. We got Mundungus jumping back in on Super Chat. Just so generous, man. He says, outside of Burrow, who do you think has a bigger chance at Rookie of the Year over Jerry Jeudy? I just don't see anyone else having the production on any other team that Jeudy could have with Denver. You know who I'm thinking about, Zach? CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. But what would your answer be for Mundungus? That would be my answer as a possibility, though I'm not sure he would have a better necessarily. About equal odds, honestly, is Jeudy.
Yeah, I mean, the playing time factor, Jeudy is going to see more snaps because CeeDee Lamb's buried behind Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. He'll play some slot. They have a lot of weapons there, including Zeke, including Blake Jarwin, their tight end. I was going to say Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, he's a starting running back for the reigning world champions. He's going to be such a weapon in the Andy Reid offense. That's one guy who's going to have the production. I don't know if it's going to be enough to win O'Roy, but he's going to get a lot of touchdowns and a lot of yards this season.
All right, let me get to this number 6 question real quick. How will the new veteran faces fit on defense? We've already touched on Bouye, but really what this is about is Jarrell Casey. Now, I'm of the opinion that Casey is going to be a home run for this team in terms of just another one of Elway's. You can't quite call it a free agency move because he was a trade, but veteran market type move. I think he's going to do very well in Vic Fangio's defense. Hopefully he hits it off with Bill Kollar. There is a little bit of a risk for personality clashes. Not everyone gets along with Kollar and his style. However, I think it's going to crush, but you just never know for sure because when it comes to veteran transplants who succeeded in one city with one group of coaches and one staff, sometimes when they transplant to the new, all bets are off in terms of them just picking up where they left off.
Yeah, I mean, all things being equal, he should be a major factor in the Broncos defense. I don't know about Pro Bowl. He's a reigning 5-time Pro Bowler, but he's going to be just a monster in the middle, and he's going to give the Broncos something they haven't had, Chad, in since Malik Jackson, an interior pocket pusher, and that's going to help Bradley Chubb and Von Miller out. I don't know again if it's going to be an all-star type season, but he's going to do a lot of the dirty work for Von and Chubb to eat this year.
I mean, Derek Wolfe was that last year. That's one of the reasons why I don't understand why they didn't make a bigger push to keep him here because he proved to be that pocket pusher in Fangio's scheme last year. He was a perfect fit, but you're not wrong. I mean, at bottom, the last time it was a proven guy you could count on, it was Malik. So I'm with you on that. All right, number 7, how will the team divvy out running back reps? So here's the problem, Zach.
That's a good
Broncos, look, you got Gordon coming in. Even though Philip Lindsay's back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher, he's the incumbent, it's his team, it's his teammates, and Gordon's a new guy, he's going to be highly motivated to justify his new contract. We already know he's super sensitive about it, right? At the same time, the Broncos are going to expect Gordon to justify that money, that $16 million, which could see the competition for that running back 1 spot be kind of greased in Gordon's favor. I hope it doesn't happen that way. I hope the team allows this to be a truly fair fight.
Yeah.
But if that's the way it shakes out, I'm still not going to count Lindsay out as the guy that emerges on top because he's just not a guy it's ever wise to bet against. But I'm really curious to see, and this is an answer we won't have till the regular season, to be honest with you, but how those running back reps get divvied up between those two potent running backs.
You know what I really hate, Chad, that coordinators do is they script the first 15, 20 plays of the game and they have a preconceived notion of how they're going to go into a game and attack an opponent. I don't want that to be the case with Melvin Gordon. I don't want him to be the RB1 because of his contract or because he's a veteran and because the Broncos think he's better. They should ride the hot hand. no matter who that's going to be, even if it's Royce Freeman, even if it's Bellamy, ride the hot hand in that backfield. Lindsey will make plays this year, but the money they gave Melvin Gordon, making him the 7th highest paid running back, it seems to me they're going to shoehorn him in there and make him be the guy. And the last time we saw that was Joe Flacco last year. So they can't go with that type of mentality. They have to truly play the best player, regardless of money, regardless of contract, whoever is doing the best for the Broncos offense. And more often than not, Chad, it's going to be number 30.
Yeah, I agree. Number 8, we've already talked about on tonight's podcast, which is who emerges as the punt and kick returning. You guys know our thoughts on that. Number 9 is, how will the tight end log jam resolve? Jeff Hireman, Jake Butt, Troy Fumagalli, Noah Fant, Albert O. These 5 guys, what they have in common, they were all Bronco draft picks in the last 5-6 seasons, right? So that they're going to have some tough decisions to make as a franchise. We know that Noah Fant and Albert O, they're guaranteed a roster spot. There's a good chance Nick Van Ed is also guaranteed a roster spot by virtue of the guaranteed money on his deal. So if the Broncos end up carrying 4 tight ends this year, which they might, really there's only one spot that's actually up for grabs amongst the likes of Butt, Fumagalli. Then you throw in Andrew Beck. You throw in, what's the kid from Wyoming? Austin Fort. So how is this going to resolve? I'm really curious to see how it shakes out.
Here's how it resolves. Bye-bye, Jeff Hireman. Bye-bye, Jake Butt. Bye-bye, Troy Fumagalli. You're going to keep 4 on the roster. You keep Beck. He plays fullback and tight end. You have Van Ed as the blocker, which I'm not crazy about. You're not either, Chad. You have Alberto, who you just drafted, and you have Noah Fant. Those are your 4 right there. Every other guy is a jag, and see ya. Enjoy your pink slip.
All right, number 10, we've also already touched on tonight, which is, can players maintain social responsibility and prioritize safety in terms of, withstanding the temptation to go out and hit the town. It's going to be hard to do. Those of us who are men, and even women too, like going out when you're single and on the town and trying to meet people and whatnot. It's going to be very difficult to suppress that temptation, but they really have to be able to do it this year. But those are the 10 questions that really are on my mind for the Broncos in a very condensed, shortened presentation. And Zach, I was dying to get your thoughts on each one of those points. So now that we're 6 minutes over the 1 hour mark, let us see what else is in the chat stream. We got KP. By the way, your hat, I'm sorry on the delay. It officially went out today. The orange hat, the last of its kind. It is a unicorn. It's headed in your direction officially. Send it out to you, my friend. So I'm guessing you should see that middle of next week, maybe sooner. But anyway, thank you for your generosity and your contributions to the community. As always, KP. He says, Eclipse, you killed it last night, my brother. #love. See, dude, so it's all love. It's all support. And I'm sure he appreciates hearing that from you. KP, appreciate you, brother. All right, let me see what else we've got here. We are running a little bit long. John, I don't know. Chase Young as rookie of the year on the defensive side. Probably. Probably.
For the Washington football team.
All right, guys. Let me see if there's any other pressing questions here, and then we'll get out of here for tonight. Let me see here. Bear with me 1 second. I know we got all the supers. Let's see if there's any other pressing questions. A lot of good conversation going on in the chat stream, but Jody wants to know, why is Wade Phillips still unemployed?
Good question.
I'll tell you why. I guarantee you he wants more money than most teams are willing to pay him right now that are in the hunt or looking for a DC. You got to remember, when the Broncos hired him in 2015, he was their second choice after Vance Joseph for defensive coordinator under Gary Kubiak. Since he blocked him, so Joseph was removed from the equation, and Wade was just languishing out there on the unemployment line, basically. And Kubiak, who they had worked together previously in Houston, he's like, hey, I got the perfect guy. Bring him in as kind of like save the day at the last second, bridge the gap type thing. And it worked out really well. And he was able to capture lightning in a bottle, put all the pieces together, really help the Broncos win that Super Bowl. And coming out of that, the Broncos defense were considered to be the bee's knees, Zach. And so he was able to command some serious cheddar. But his defense in LA, even though they had some serious talent there, they got to the Super Bowl and whatnot. And actually, you know what? Wade Phillips, he dang near came close to duplicating what he did in that Super Bowl against Bill Belichick. They smothered that defense, pretty much smothered Tom Brady.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. But anyway, I think he's just asking for too much money, to be honest with you. And he's at a point in his career where he's seen it all, done it all.
Right.
He's been to the top of the mountain. He got that ring. And man, I wish his father, Bum Phillips, would have been alive to see that. But he got the ring. So he can afford to, at this age, he's in his 60s, he can afford to be choosy about where he lands.
See, that was my thing. I was wondering, and this is just tinfoil hat speculation, but he's actually 73. I just looked it up. And I'm wondering, with CV going
73?
around 73. So I'm wondering, maybe teams don't want to take him on because he's high risk or he has a pre-existing condition.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's something that just went through my mind. But yeah, he has a very high opinion of himself, and rightfully so. He's a very humble guy, a very funny guy, jokey kind of guy, but he's accomplished. And like Chad said, why should he settle for anything less? Why should he not hold out for the money he wants? Jadeveon Clowney's doing it right now. He wants $20 million a year, and he's not going to settle for $5 million. So why would Wade Phillips settle for $2 million to play for to coach for the Bengals? Let's say he's going to hold out, and if he doesn't get it, I'll walk off to the sunset.
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But he can afford to be that chooser guy right now, and maybe he never takes another NFL job. We'll see. He's made a lot of money in his life, and he's 73, dude. Enjoy. I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of guys in that age bracket, or approaching that age bracket, rather, that they don't ever want to retire because what are you going to do? Just sit around and stare at your wife all day? I love spending time with my wife. But you're going to be itching to do something and be productive. And, not everyone just wants to piddle around in the backyard or go play golf. Like, people are truly fulfilled when they're actively engaged in their whatever their passions and pursuits are. And in his case, maybe he wants to keep coaching, but, he can afford to be very choosy at this point. All right. That's got to do it for tonight, you guys. Shout out to each and every one of you for joining us live. By the time we come back Sunday night, it's going to literally be the doorstep of training camp getting started Monday. So we'll look forward to seeing what unfolds perhaps between now and then. Any news on the testing and stuff like that, we'll see how it shakes out. We got our fingers crossed that everyone's going to get the green light to show up on Monday who's tested today. But in the meantime, guys, make sure you are following the podcast on Twitter. You can see right there at Huddle Up Pod. Also follow at Mile High Huddle. You can find my partner, Zack Kelberman, at Kelberman NFL, myself at Chad and Jensen. A reminder to support each other, and not just in the community in terms of friendship and connections, but, if you got, like we're talking about, Zach Web Design, Mundungus' bookstore. If you got a brick and mortar business, shout it out to us. Let us know what it is. Let's all support each other and do the best we can to try and roll with the punches of what has been a really, really just crappy 2020 so far. Hopefully the Broncos can change the trajectory for Broncos fans at this point and give everyone something to really celebrate. We're all looking forward to the season because we can all escape and have a good time analyzing this and just enjoy the heck out of this team. But anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. Zach, have a great weekend, bro.
You as well, and we will have Hamler news by Sunday night, Chad. He will be signed by then. It's not so bold prediction. So we can at least talk about that, and training camp's rolling around. Soon enough, it'll be September. We'll have football. All I can say is thank God. And to piggyback on what Chad was saying, support local businesses.
And by the way, Zach's Web Design, if your site, your business, where you, curry where you try and recruit new customers, if you have a website, reach out to me so I know what it is, and then we can start sharing it out there and let people know how to connect with you online. But guys, that'll do it for today. Thanks for joining us. Mile high salute to our Super Chat superstars who just continue to just move us and floor us. We're so grateful and lucky to have you guys. And it's just motivating. More than anything, it motivates Zach and I to keep showing up and continue to dig our heels in and roll up our sleeves and work hard to bring you guys this content, not only these podcasts, but all the written content and the videos. So thank you so much for what you guys do. Shout out to Buana Beast. Appreciate everything you do as well, my friend. And gang, have a great weekend and a safe weekend. And we'll see you Sunday. But don't forget, you got Dove Valley Deep Divers tomorrow night. Same time, 6 Mountain, 8 Eastern. And then you got Mile High Insiders Saturday night. Then Zach and I will be back Sunday. So have a good weekend, Zach. Have a good weekend, John. And we'll talk to you guys on Sunday. For Zack Kelberman, I'm Chad Jensen. We'll talk to you then.